This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and the brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, welcome to episode 53. This was our last recording of 2017. We did this one at the end of December, but didn't get it up in time, so Happy New Year. Hope you guys are enjoying 2018 so far. As most of you are probably aware, there's a new ban on grizzly bear hunting here in British Columbia that came by surprise, so you're going to hear our thoughts off the top of the episode here. We're also going to give you some updates on the beer run, which is now complete, and we're also going to share some guest stories from this past year. So we hope you guys enjoy this compilation of some of our favorite chats. As always, head over to the website, which is therookieHunter.com. From there, you can find links to all of our social media, our online store where you can get your own Rookie Hunter tee, and you can also contact us. All of our contact information is up there. We'd love to hear from you guys. So let's get into this episode. Happy New Year, guys. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 53.
Yeah, the BC government announced that grizzly bear hunting is going to be banned across the province.
Completely.
Yeah, so it started with a ban on trophy hunting. So if you shot a grizz, residents, or I guess anybody, you'd have to hand over the trophy parts, which would be the paws, claws, head, and hide.
Yeah.
So then obviously that caused a stir based on the fact that that's a wasteful policy.
Totally.
And then they went back and asked for feedback and got a bunch of feedback. And now they basically come out and said, well, no hunting at all except for Aboriginals.
Crazy.
So I know Jesse, I listened to him on the radio and he mentioned that they kind of changed the goalposts, like to consult with a group of folks in a democracy and then ask one question and then come out and say, no, here's the solution. And it's a totally different answer to the question.
Yeah.
It's not really a great way to handle things.
And it's fine to ask for public opinion, but if that's all you're going to base your decision on, it's fine. It's like, okay, here's sort of what the general public thinks, and the general public is not in favor of grizzly bear hunting of any type, but they're not educated in any way to make that decision. So we can say, okay, you know, people don't like this, but maybe we can find a bit of a middle ground. I don't think getting rid of the grizzly hunt in any way was a good idea, but I thought, okay, well, if it's going to make some people happy and we have to get rid of trophy hunting, then so be it. But an outright full-on ban is ridiculous.
Yeah, and even the on the trophy side, it's a little slippery too, because we've talked about a hunter as a hunter.
Yeah.
So how do you define one versus the other? But I think most people are mad about the non-residents that come in and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to use the word trophy hunters, but there's a scale on like who you can kind of lump into that category. Yeah. And I think the ones that are, you know, I don't know where to go on this one.
No, I get it, man. I totally get what you're saying. It's just like from an outsider perspective, I think this is what you're getting towards, is like, I think people are less, you ruffle less feathers when you make it mandatory that people remove all of the edible portions of the animal and put it to use. I think they see the trophy hunt as sort of a waste of life, I guess. I don't know if that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, your intent shouldn't be to kill something just for the trophy parts.
Right.
But I think even the folks that are coming out from the US, and I think there's very few hunters that actually do that, like the experience and everything else is always lumped into that category. So it's very hard to kind of point out those people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
like the bad guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really many of those. I think a lot of them are in it for the trip and the experience, and the rest of it kind of falls into place too.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's a hard one to define.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Shane and a lot of other folks are saying, like, just drop the trophy hunting semantics altogether. But
I think the part that frustrates me the most about this whole thing is like habitat over and over again with all these different species. That's the number one thing, and it's the thing that gets ignored constantly. So so now we're protecting a species that has been managed well, and it's a sustainable hunt. Meanwhile, we've got things like the woodland caribou.
yeah, and the
which are
steelhead.
and they're disappearing and nothing's being done. They keep missing deadlines to actually do something about this. And for whatever reason, that doesn't make the headlines. I don't know why. It does, but it's not as
It's not as emotional, right?
So it just drives me crazy that decisions are made without any science-backed information. It's just basically public opinion and a way to potentially, I guess, sway public opinion of the NDP party. They approved the Site C dam a week before, which I think pissed off a lot of people. And I don't know if this was a way to sort of, get some trust back from people or what. It's one way to look at it.
It seems to be wildlife management is a political tool nowadays.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating.
And, as we just started to record here, you said, one of the things you can do is talk to your MPs, and I think they're willing to listen when they want your vote. But once they're in there, I don't know if they really care or not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
wrong.
Wrong.
There has to be a way. They have to be hearing it from multiple people and knowing that it's part of staying in their position in the future. And if they don't hear from a lot of people, it doesn't make it a priority for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think a couple things, like one is wildlife management through hunting and conservation, especially towards grizzly bears, and having a sustainable hunt, and all that money going toward, I think it was like $200,000 a year that license fees put towards grizzly bears specifically.
Okay.
So if you start removing all these resources from that management scheme or strategy, I should say.
Yeah.
Then what replaces it? Right?
Yeah.
So who's going to manage, habitat loss or if populations of grizzly bears continue to increase and they have negative impacts and conflicts on people, who's going to manage that?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to fall more on the conservation officers. Who pays the conservation officers? Like ultimately, this is all going to come back to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Because hunters aren't kind of doing that job indirectly.
Yeah.
And the other side of the coin is the impact on the other animals. So as grizzly bears populations go up, and I don't think they're declining. I think they're increasing.
Yeah.
They start impacting moose and caribou and all these other things too. So then who pays for all that? And then you start getting into the whole, with wolf calls and poison, and maybe not poison so much, but shooting out of helicopters and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. People say, well, you shouldn't do that. Well, now we have a problem and there's no other way to solve it because you can't let hunters take care of it. Now you're basically stuck with conservation officers having to do it. Yeah. So,
I think that's happened in states like California where they stopped cougar hunts and stuff like that.
Yeah, now they're all in their backyards.
Yeah, exactly. And now they're having to cull them and all that kind of stuff. And that makes people upset. But I guess...
Even more so, I think.
Yeah, well, who wants to,
Yeah, then it is a waste almost, right?
For sure.
Because I don't know if they're taking all that meat. I could be wrong. We'd have to look into that. But I feel like hunters are using the resources.
Yeah, man. I think so. So it's kind of a bummer. I find it really, really frustrating. If it wasn't a sustainable hunt, no questions asked. Like, stop it for however long it needs to be stopped. That goes for any species, but
yeah, like as a management target.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's just because it's I don't know, man. It's
not good. And I think a lot of it, there's concern that US funded NGOs are kind of driving this social engineering aspect of this. It's kind of a value argument and emotion. It's very emotional.
right.
And it's not science based. And I think that's the goal of some of these groups, is to kind of throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and whatever sticks. And as long as it kind of pushes it in their direction, they're willing to throw it, right? So, and it kind of overwhelms the messages and the scientific data out there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like, it just seems like that those are the messages that kind of overwhelm the public, and they don't get all the facts.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know how to solve that.
I don't know, man.
But what happens when they start going after other species, right? Like, oh, now you can't hunt moose. Now you can't hunt sheep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a good precedent.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And ultimately, it starts chipping away at that whole conservation model, which in the last 100 years or whatever has saved multiple species, right? Like,
Totally.
without that system, I don't know if we'd have mule deer, or everything from mule deer to turkeys to ducks, and who knows? Like, there's so many animals that have been saved by that system.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think folks understand it.
No, clearly not.
And how long did it take us to understand it? I mean, it wasn't like one day we woke up and said, oh, conservation makes sense.
No.
Like it...
There's a few pivotal moments for us, for sure. And I think a lot of that is from talking to Jesse, where the switch kind of went off. And yeah, man, I was even just talking to somebody in the studio here like a couple of weeks ago, and was sort of talking about some of the issues with steelhead and with caribou. They had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And her thought was exactly what our initial thoughts were when we got into this, that things have been managed well, and wildlife populations are, healthy. And it's not, it's unfortunate. And I always refer to, I like the name of Jesse's PowerPoint presentation, which is, are we losing what makes BC special?
Yeah.
And I think we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, it takes a while to kind of learn the up the top level aspect of like for the greater good, right? So are you willing to, a hunter kills one bear to save 50 bears?
Right.
Or are you so emotionally tied to that one bear that you just can't let that happen, and then all 51 bears disappear in the next 50 years?
Yeah.
Like, that's a hard decision to make, especially for that one bear that everyone's attached to. And maybe you named it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's actually hurting the bears in the long run, and potentially a bunch of other animals. So
it's the same thing as like the rhino hunts in that, man.
Yeah.
Where they these guys will pay crazy amounts of money to hunt one rhino. That rhino has been selected because it's an older male. They get aggressive as they get older, and they actually start to kill other rhinos. So they're hurting their own population, and by taking that one out, they're helping the rest, and also putting money into conservation and into the local communities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, that might not always be the case, but in some of those bigger, hunts that kind of hit the news pretty hard, once you do a bit of research on them, you find out that there's reasons and everything behind that. And I think that translates exactly to what you're saying, what's happening here. So
also you can end up with like some type of black market or poaching situation for
you
grizzly
totally
bears
can,
now.
man. Yeah, for sure.
Like, who knows?
Yeah.
I know that Africa, like, the reason they have all these animals is because of the conservation, and it's more valuable for the people in the towns of those countries to make money off of the hunting and ensuring that those animals stay on the landscape than actually just killing them all and making the short-term cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good.
No, I don't know, man. Frustrating. Mainly for me, like I already said, it's like it's the big issues are being ignored, and this is just sort of a blanket to throw over all that stuff so they can ignore it.
Yeah, and like you said, and it's happening kind of all over the place, I feel like, but you kind of give bad news in one area and then you try to win something with another problem, like grizzly bears in this case. I don't know. You're kind of like catering to who your base is.
Yeah.
Whether it's in Canada or the US or whatever.
But I guess, these things can be undone. Let's hope that's the case.
Yeah.
Sure, there'll be another election, sooner than later by the sounds of it. So who knows, man? But it's just, it's a bit frustrating. I don't want to dwell on this for too long, but we'll probably come back to this topic at some point and talk about it again once we've had more time to think about it. This only came out a couple of days ago, so.
I think it's interesting too to mention that the Liberal Party is actually in favor of the grizzly bear hunt.
Yeah.
And I think they're the only ones. I could be wrong.
I think, what's his name from Green Party was in favor of meat hunt.
Oh, okay.
What the hell's his name?
Weaver?
Yeah. So anyways, I think they're sort of on their own on this one. Although I think there was a spokesperson for the Green Party that congratulated them on this decision. So I don't know, kind of mixed messages there. But I know he was sort of in favor of, allowing it to be a meat hunt. But I don't know, man. So hopefully maybe this will be one of those things that gets people talking, gets people fired up a little bit.
Yeah.
And, if we just kind of sweep it under the rug and move on, then I guess we've failed as a community to, enlighten people and share the facts with them. So,
yeah. And Jesse's mentioned, I don't know what the number is. I think it's like 60, 100,000 or something like that. I don't know if it was anglers and hunters together, but there's like 100,000 or something more if we all joined up, right? And the other thing is there's anglers. Like it's not just hunters. If hunters and anglers joined together and started fighting for some of these things, because it's not just grizzly bears. Like you might think, I don't hunt, I'm just a fisherman.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when they make your salmon fishing, you can't do that anymore. Or maybe it's a LEH system or whatever. And if it has to be, fine. But like there's different reasons that they could put these regulations in. So if they start doing it with hunting, maybe they start doing it with fishing too. Yeah. So, especially if people get emotionally attached to fish, like what happens if people start naming fish and you're sitting reeling them in? Yeah. You're going to make enemies.
Yeah. What if you go to a restaurant and you can't order salmon anymore because there isn't any left?
Well, yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. At least not any local West Coast salmon.
Some of that farmed shit.
Yeah.
No thanks. I can't remember what kind of fish it was. In Portugal, while I was there, was it cod? Let's pretend it was cod. Was like a main dish in Portugal for the longest time.
Yeah.
They fished the shit out of their ocean. They're totally gone. They now bring them in from Canada and the east coast of the U.S. and stuff like that, but mainly from Canada. So they're still serving it as like, one of their traditional dishes, but they overfish the area.
Yeah.
And they're not there anymore. So it can happen, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, the big message is like to the general public, fishermen, anglers, and hunters want nothing more than sustainable animals for the future and all the generations to come. Mm-hmm. Although we harvest for food, mainly for food purposes, right? Yeah. And that's sustainable.
Yeah.
So stop antagonizing the parties that are really dumping and are willing to dump resources into saving these animals. Mm-hmm. And right now it's backwards. They think that we're the ones abolishing the animals.
Yeah.
So
it's such I understand like where they come from, but I've never had more of a connection to wildlife through this whole experience. So by taking the life of an animal, you're so much more connected to them, which is bizarre. Yeah. But it's not even like the taking the life of an animal for food. It's like all the amazing things that we've seen throughout this experience.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of BC, our home province,
Yeah, man.
and it's pushing us to see more. It allows you to see firsthand the impacts of how many roads are out there and how the habitat's being lost. Like you can see it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like we're kind of hunting puts you on the front line and you can really observe all these things. Whereas if you're not out there and you're just kind of on Facebook thinking, yeah, shooting a grizzly bear is bad, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that in someone's eyes, that's a good deed. And I think their intent is to do something good.
I agree. Yeah.
I just don't think they realize the bigger picture.
Yeah. I don't blame people's opinion for causing this, because I get their angle. It's exactly what you said. They think they just don't know the other side of it.
Yeah.
And these decisions can't just be made on public opinion. So,
yeah. Because, unfortunately, it's uneducated and it's not their fault, but.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, man, I didn't want this to be a bummer topic, but I don't know. It's hard not to get involved with it, just because you start to look down the line a little bit and you hope that this decision doesn't lead to another poor decision.
Yeah. I think it's tough for Canada and BC too, because like you look down, we mentioned this, you look at the States and they try to take public land away, and the BHA and Cam Haines and Joe Rogan and Steve Vernella and like the list goes on. They there's an outright social media like war that happens.
Totally.
Which kind of spills out into the streets and everything else, where people are doing demonstrations, and then the politicians start realizing that maybe they have to look at this again.
Yeah.
But I feel like up here, we don't really have those big personalities with the big followers and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, from a North American conservation model perspective, this isn't a good precedent. So I think it's a call to them to kind of help us out up here.
Yeah, man. That's exactly what I was going to lead into, is like, you and I have been talking about some ideas about how to get people engaged. We're only two people, and this podcast only reaches hunter types, right? So it's like, how do we bridge the gaps and stuff like that? And so we have some ideas that we'll probably talk about more in the new year, about how we can raise some awareness and some funds and stuff like that. But we're also going to Sheep Show, which I don't think we've mentioned yet. We're still booking flights and all that kind of stuff and doing some last minute arrangements, but there's going to be all kinds of people that we can network with down there. And I think we definitely need the help from those bigger personalities and those people who have a larger reach, because we don't have that reach in Canada. Like you said, there's not really like those people who can, put out an Instagram post and reach millions of people. Most of these guys are familiar with BC and Canada. They all come up here to hunt. And I think these issues impact them just as much as they do us. And I think it's close to their heart too. So I think we definitely need to kind of team up with some guys and get some help up here, because I think a lot of guys are more familiar with the issues that Americans are up against with public land and stuff like that than they are with what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen a lot of posts, like especially from the big names, about this. So that's great. And I think, I mean, like you said, most of these guys and girls are coming up, and our BC outfitters are taking them out as non-residents and all that. So I think to ensure they can do that in the future, and just to kind of show why non-resident hunting is important as well, is to get involved and help BC out.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Otherwise, all the opportunities are going to be gone.
Totally. That's a scary
Like
thought.
Jeff Lander said, it's the Serengeti of the North. So from a hunting perspective, want to make sure there's opportunities.
Yep, for sure. Shall we move on?
Yep.
What's on tap?
Postmark Winter Warmer.
I
It
saw
is robust, warm, and rich.
it is. I saw the label, which is a nice snowy coastal scene, and we've got a lot of snow on the ground here, man.
Yeah, it
So-
snowed like a foot yesterday.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's beautiful. The temperature really dropped, so I think the snow is going to stick around for Christmas and shit here, which is
Mhm.
pretty nice. But yeah, tasty beer. I got another one too.
Definitely.
So-
We went hunting on Sunday
Yep.
in the snow. Kind of our last bow hunt
Yeah,
of the year.
which was fun.
It was fun. We had some, we saw some mule deer, and there was a white-tailed doe with the group.
Yeah, that was bizarre, man.
Even when we spooked them a couple times, the whitetail and the mule deer were moving in a pack together. So that was kind of weird. I actually didn't think it even was a whitetail just based on those circumstances until I saw like it from the backside, right?
We spotted the mule deer first, and she was with them, but you could see sort of the white on her stood out, quite a bit, and we were trying to figure out like, oh, is that just like a fawn or something? But it was quite big for a fawn, and trying to figure it out. But she was just hanging out with a group of mule deer, and as she moved up, the mule deer would follow her. There's a 2-point buck there too, which of course is no longer. That's twice that's happened to you.
Yeah, I've seen 2 bucks now that were just out of season, and I haven't seen a single buck the entire season.
Brutal.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Obviously wasn't in the right spot. I know mule deer are a little bit more migratory than whitetail. and
Yeah.
I don't know. I just get the feeling that I know you got one in the same spot that I was in too, but maybe we weren't in the ideal spot. Maybe we weren't in the heart of it this year. I felt like we were in the heart of it last year.
I don't know where the heart is
Yeah.
this year.
I think it moved based on like we were talking about, all the weather changes.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
might have,
I hope that's
they
the
might have
case.
migrated a little
Yeah.
bit.
We'll circle back to that. The doe, we chased it around.
Yeah. Made a plan, went up one side, went down below a ridge, and then climbed up a little avalanche chute thing,
Yeah.
and then popped over top. And she was staring right at me.
How many yards was she at that point?
I was still like a couple hundred yards. Like
Yeah.
I can't believe how good their hearing is, and it really sucks the life out of you when you think you got a chance.
I know, man.
So, but I mean, she kind of knew before, and she hadn't run away, and she was flicking her tail. Like it wasn't like she was too concerned. So I
Yeah.
thought, there's a lot of snow on the ground. I'm just gonna get on my hands and knees, crawl like another 150 yards. It took me like, I don't know, 20 minutes to crawl along for a while, and
Yeah.
I poke up, nothing there. Another 20 minutes crawling along, poke up, nothing there. And then I saw her like already on the next ridge. So then we chased her up that too and tried it again. And I don't know. It was just,
Yeah.
we were pushing them the whole time.
Doesn't-
Whitetail bow hunting, stalking is almost
Fuck,
impossible.
It's almost a waste of time.
Yeah.
But
feel
the thing is, it's like, in the terrain that we're in, it's just like wide open, man.
Yeah.
So it's like,
tough.
and you're dealing with lots of windfall and willows or alder brush or whatever that shit is.
Yeah.
And to try and be quiet and stealthy is like almost impossible.
Yeah.
And mule deer, man, I feel like you can spook them, but they're only going to go up to the top of the ridge and onto the other side.
Yeah.
And you can always sort of sneak up on them and get a shot off.
Sometimes they won't even move.
Yeah, man. So what we did was we spotted the whitetail. You took a right and you were gonna go around this little mountain and come up around the backside and try and get up on top of her. So I was watching, but something spooked him, and it wasn't you or I. And the mule deer and the whitetail all started to move. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna try and take a left here and corral them back towards you. As I was doing that, there was a mule deer with her fawn, and I've got a video and a photo of it. She was probably less than 20 yards from me, And I was talking to her like, hey,
Well, yeah.
nothing to see here. And then she was just staring at me, man. So it was like it had, it's funny. It's almost like they're taunting you. Like they know, like, you're not a threat to me. So it's interesting. Yeah, the difference between mule deer and even that buck, man, that 2-point rifle season, we would have come home with a whitetail and a muley that day.
Yeah.
But man, it's just so hard to close the gap spot and stock for a whitetail. They're always they go like twice the distance, it seems like, of mule deer. They're always 2 steps ahead of you.
And they don't hesitate. As soon as they think something's up, they're gone.
Yeah.
Whereas a mule deer, like you said, they'll sit and stare at you until you're 15 feet away sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah, we could have came home with like 8 mule deer if that was it.
We could have put a leash on them and walked them to your garage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun anyways, man. That was good good workout. When I came back down, you and I got to sort of a big bald peak there, and we both went around one side. It ended up being like a big cliff off the backside.
Yeah, which sketched me out. I was kind of
it's because it was slippery
up that
too.
backside of that thing.
But they circled back down, and then I tried to. I had one more potential opportunity to maybe kind of cut them off again. I ended up in all these alders there and got stuck in there and was just bushwhacking. And I got up on some logs and I fell, and I was brutal, man.
Nice.
Yeah. But
I was popped over the top, and I said, "Where's Mike?" I sat there for like 10 minutes, just kind of looking around. Then I saw off in the distance a bit of movement.
Yeah.
And you were already like way down at the bottom of it. Like, oh shit, I guess deer isn't up here. So then I just started, we dropped our packs a ways away. That's the risk. I'm never too keen on dropping the packs because I feel like, you spook them once, you spook them again, and then all of a sudden you're on the next ridge and your packs, you're way back there. Yeah. But again, it was much easier to crawl and climb up that rock without it.
I wasn't worried about. I often worry because I've done this once where I put down I think it was my pack. It was chasing a deer, and then thought, oh yeah, I'll remember where that is. It took me like an hour to find my fucking backpack. Yeah. After that, but where we dropped them that time, I knew we'd be able to find them again. But it's like, okay, you get a deer down. Now you got to go back because all your tools and stuff that you need are in there. But
plus we could find our tracks in the snow.
But if dropping the pack is a way to get a kill, then I guess that's what you have to do. But I hear you on that one. You just keep getting further and further away. Yeah. This was an interesting season, Cal. We ended up with a buck. You weren't able to take a crack at anything. Not harping on you, but how does it feel to go through a season? And because I'm sure there's lots of guys who didn't get an opportunity as well. Yeah, no, it's just frustrating because you put time in, and kind of expect at one point something's gonna work in your favor, right? But I don't know. You can't. They're out there living in a way that they're constantly avoiding predators and everything else to stay alive, right? So you can't just assume that you're going to get something every year. And I've heard from a lot of folks that have been hunting for a long time that they didn't get anything this year. Yeah. Just based on environmental factors and a lot of other things that are happening. So yeah, we kept hearing the same story over and over again. Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I just felt like it was a different year. I wasn't seeing as much as we did last year. And man, the only buck I saw was the one that's in my freezer right now. Yep. And the one that we saw on Saturday, which was no longer legal, or Sunday, I mean. Yep. So all those hours we spent, man, which is, I couldn't even add that up, how many kilometers we've hiked this year, how much terrain we've covered. We were all the way from here to the top of BC and back, and $2. That's crazy. Yeah. Compared to last year where it was like pick a deer. Yeah. Wild. Plus we also did a high risk, kind of low chance trip for the sheep, but refill, which that was a pretty large chunk of time that we could have put
towards, like, maybe if we put that towards a mule deer, we'd have 2 mule deer and who knows, right?
Maybe not though.
Or maybe an elk, or maybe not. But I don't know. I kind of feel like at the same time, yes, we put in a lot of time. A lot of it was nearby. I feel like there's always room to put in more effort, whether it's a week trip here, 2 weeks there. You could even go for a quick hunt in the morning before you went to work. Like, there's always room to do more.
Yeah.
So I kind of reflect back and like, oh, well, what could I have done to maybe,
So I was going to ask you, next.
increase the chances? And I think, I think I was always hoping that it wasn't the area that changed, like I wasn't seeing a lot, but maybe it's just that one day and I go back. Maybe it's just like the week or the month and it's a little slower due to the weather. So I go back and it was just the same answer every time. So then looking back, I'm like, well, maybe I should have changed earlier on and use this season as a way to kind of scout out new areas. Cause the opportunities I was given in the areas I knew were not proving any better than opportunities if I would have just picked a random spot on the map.
Yeah.
So looking back, I kind of wish I would have went other places.
Right.
So that's the one thing I would have done differently this year, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. But it's funny because, you sort of rely on the fact that it's going to be the same this year as it was last year. So we keep going to that spot, expecting to see the same results as we did. So I agree with you. I kind of feel like that was a bit of a waste of time, but
it could have been in the other place too.
No, that's what I mean. I was going to say, like, had we gone somewhere else, we probably would have been saying, shit, we should have just stuck to our original spot because the deer probably can't, like, you just don't know. Right.
Yeah.
But we were trying, I guess we had that spot that we were confident with. And then we probably looked at 3 or 4 other locations this year. Same thing and same story coming from a lot of guys locally. So,
yep. And everybody's got their tolerance for, what they can do and how much time they can put in and how far they can go. And depending on your career and your family and home life and everything else. So, obviously if we could be out there every day and traveling every day, that'd be awesome. But
I definitely have,
it's just not the case.
I get obsessed with shit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why I ended up with a buck, but I think it was luck because I don't think I really spent too much more time than you did because you continued to go out after I got that one and you were doing some solo hunts too.
A lot more than I did in the past. So that's one thing that I improved on.
I gotta crack this one open for you.
Nice.
Yeah, and I know you, I like the solo hunts. You're starting to come around to them a little bit. There's pros and cons to it, man. Like, I like going out. I would prefer, if I had to choose, one or the other would be to go out with you. But when we're dealing with a certain amount of time and our goal is to get meat, then it's just dealing with the time that we have. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Yeah. But on the last podcast, we sort of outlined on episode 50 there, that the idea for next year is to sort of plan out some dates, lining up with weekends and shit like that, where we take a Friday or a Monday off or whatever, so we can actually dedicate more time and do that, 2 or 3 times on top of what we, plan on doing for a big trip and that.
Yep.
And hopefully that makes a difference for us. I think that's a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of, less frequent trips that are longer and allow you to kind of immerse yourself in an area for, even if it's an overnight.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge difference then, because here's the thing. Usually you're going to shoot something in the morning or at night, right? And it's usually in the last hours or early hours of whatever that bookend is. So if you're going out there for a day or a morning or whatever, you kind of work your butt off to get out there for that first bracket, that dawn, or if you're going out in the afternoon, you wait until the last half hour. But if you're out there for a night, you get that half hour plus you get the next dusk or dawn, sorry,
Yeah.
of the morning. And then you can even push that out even further to the next day. You're kind of familiar with maybe what's happening in that first 4 hours, and you can shift your plans a little bit,
Yeah.
try out the next morning. I don't know. I just feel like it opens up so much more for interpretation of what's happening in that area. And then you can shift your plan and hopefully something will happen. Whereas when you're just like, when you're out there for 4 hours, it's like, I'm going to wing it, see what happens. And then boom, you're hitting the reset button every time.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I agree and disagree at the same time. It's like, I don't gamble, but do you go all in on one day like that? Or, like a couple of days? Or do you spread it out over multiple things and sort of try that out? And that's kind of how I've been successful, is like just getting out there whenever I can over, I get out once this week, twice the next week. And it's always, for me, it's always just mornings, because I have that advantage with the way my hours are and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree. And I guess there's two ways to look at it, but definitely I don't think it's going to be a disadvantage to go and spend more time somewhere. If you got 3 days, a couple hours out of Kelowna here or something like that.
Yeah, because you might put yourself in an area that has less traffic, and you might be able to get further out, which should also increase your chances.
Yeah, for sure.
But then the other thing is, based on harvest data, going back to the gambling thing, is you sporadically could spend time in an area that has a lower harvest rate. Or like you said, if you go out 2 hours, maybe that region has a higher harvest rate. So there's all these other factors that play into it too that start to, I'm always trying to make like a math formula.
Yeah, I know, me too. Yeah. It's kind of how I'm looking at these things.
So, and I think you could actually, like, look at baseball. They have a math formula for everything. You definitely need the harvest stats. And I've been looking at those a lot. So as soon as we shift from like mule deer to whitetail, I'm always looking at harvest stats. So what's the best area?
Yeah.
Is it worth it to drive 4 hours out here and spend 2 days? Or should we stay in our area, even though we know half the whitetail, it's half less harvested out of this area than that area? So like there's all these things that I start thinking about.
Yeah. The 4 point that's up on the wall, there's another way to look at it. We kept going there. This is last year when things were going really well and there's lots of deer. We kept going there for our half days. We'd make a mistake. We'd come back. We'd correct that mistake, but we'd make a different mistake.
Yeah.
We'd come back the third time, fourth time. Each time kind of making a mental note, okay, what did we do last time that blew this opportunity?
Yeah.
And eventually, when it came down to getting that buck, before I even hit the trail, I kind of sat there. I played through all the possibilities, all the mistakes we made. I'm like, okay, today I'm not going to do any of the stupid shit that I've done. Usually it's just like dropping up over top of a ridge too quickly and done. Yeah. They're gone. So it was like repeatedly going back to that same location over, probably a 3-week period or whatever, and sort of correcting those mistakes and learning from them. But doesn't do us any good this year to keep going back to that spot. But
well,
at least
maybe that's the answer, right? Is if we know there's deer there, 100%.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
Short trips, keep going all the time. If the deer disappear, or we're not super familiar with the area, or like something's changed, like this year, maybe that's when we shift to a maybe more immersive trips.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I'm totally game to check out new spots. So it'll be interesting when September rolls around again. We'll kind of check out these 3 or 4 spots that we were dealing with this year.
Yeah.
If it's the same story, let's get the hell out of here. And
I think I'd love to try a high country mule deer hunt.
That'd be sweet.
Year coming up.
We got to spend more time in the summer, I think, then too. Just trying to find
I'm
these
game
guys.
for that too. Let's bring the dogs.
Yeah.
And we can make that like total family hiking trips.
Yeah. We talked about this on number 50 too. Yeah.
Yeah. Deal.
Cool. Nice, man.
What else do we got? We got the run challenge. No, it's the beer run.
Yeah, we rebranded it to the beer run.
Yeah. Man, I'm cutting it close. I kind of I always pride myself on getting things done
Ahead of time?
but I'm not going to promise it. I'm not going to leave it to the last second either, but I will get it done.
Nice.
It'll happen.
Pressure's on. You got
I got 2 days.
2 days?
November 21st was the day of my first run. December 21st is the day of my last.
Kelly, I got bad news for you. It's 30-day challenge.
What does that mean?
Today is your last day. Full
How
days.
many days are in November?
I don't know.
30, I think.
We'll give you one more day.
What is it, the 19th?
Because if you're counting full days, so if you started...
No, it's the 20th.
30. Today is the 30th day.
Today is.
Today is.
Oh, how many kilometers do I have left?
Okay, so we cut our silence out as two idiots try and do math.
I'll let you know how many kilometers I have. 53. No, 54.
Left?
Yeah, I could finish this today.
Okay, you have to.
Oh, yeah. I'm still in. I can still drink beer over the holidays.
You got one.
I got to
right
get
now.
out of here, though.
Okay. Yeah, I'm done.
I'm going to put an eggnog and rum in my water bottle and take off.
That was my victory after the half marathon that finished off my 120.
Yeah.
Let's talk about injuries because we both got them. I fucked up an ankle. I had to give that some time.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, so I was building up with each race. I was adding more kilometers, either distance-wise or each week, working up towards, I didn't want to say this on here in case I didn't do it, but my goal was to finish with a half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometers, which worked out. But I ran a 14-kilometer run, which was my second to last run, and I did something to my ankle on that one. So I had to give it some time to sort of heal, and it was bugging me for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went for a bow hunt, and I fucking slipped on some ice, smashed both of my knees, and had to give that a couple of days. So I let it heal. Both of them were still kind of bugging me, but I'm like, okay, I have to do this or I'm going to not be able to drink over the holidays. Felt pretty good actually the day that I went out, which was, what day was that? Monday? Yeah, Monday. I went out and ran the half marathon, but I stupidly didn't bring any water with me. So I drank a bunch before. I just didn't want to like hold a water bottle or put a Camelback on or anything like that, just because it would annoy the hell out of me. So I had like a electrolyte tablet and a bunch of water before I left. Had 4 kilometers left in the run. Had a great pace going. I think I was doing like 4:37 per kilometer or something like that, which felt really good. And then it was just like my leg started to seize up, like the worst cramp I've ever had. And it felt like running through water, sort of like just holding me back, man. And I still had like the energy to do it, but my right leg just totally seized up on me and the muscles were cramping and stuff like that. So each time I got to like a stoplight or anything like that, I would just try and stretch out my leg, just get as much oxygen as I could, and made it. I just kept pushing until I got home.
Yeah,
and
like
then
Forrest Gump.
It was brutal, man. Got home, got up the stairs, and my leg just totally seized up. Ashley's like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I couldn't even walk, man. I was hobbling around, but drank a whole bunch of water, and then I put some heat on it. Woke up the next day and was totally fine. So I was just dehydrated and cramping up. But holy man, that was rough.
So bring water.
Bring water. Yeah, don't be an idiot. But you think like, yeah, okay, I can, like most runs, I don't bother bringing any water because they're like 10, 12 kilometers or something like that. It's totally fine. And it's cool out too, right? So it's not like you're sweating like crazy and feel like you need to replenish, but yeah, I'm an idiot for not.
You don't want to wear one of those belts with the little double water bottle pouches?
No.
Hey, those are only $100 or something crazy.
Jeez.
And
to run with like a water bottle in my hand with that sloshing around, it would just it would bug me. When I did the Seattle marathon, I wore a Camelback actually, which it was fine, but that was November in Seattle, so it was like more necessary. I don't like to stop at those water stations because I feel like I lose time and I'm still trying to move and I feel like I don't even get any water. I just sort of just spill it all over myself. So Anyways, that was dumb, but it's over. I feel really good about, the progress that I made, and the fact that even though I had that brutal muscle seize up on me, the next day I felt totally fine and still feel a little bit sore, but not bad. So, and I beat my time that I did on I think the Seattle half marathon. I did an hour and 47. I did an hour and 43 for this one. So I was pretty happy.
Yeah.
Cool. With the muscle cramp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I did nothing like that. I was running about 5K, between 5 and 7.
Yeah.
The first week I did, so like out of nowhere, it's kind of like, I'm going to run 3 5Ks in a week, which was fine. Like from a cardio perspective and muscle and everything, it felt great.
Yeah.
The only problem was I like immediately gave myself a foot problem.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't plantar fasciitis.
Oh, okay.
It's like on the outside, just in front of your heel. But with that, it could even be a bruise just on the bone or something.
Right.
I didn't have any insoles in my shoes, aftermarket ones to begin with. I've since bought some, but my feet, like I do pronate a little bit,
right,
which I found out through skiing in my ski boots. So I think it was just like a little too much too soon, which once you have something like that, it just doesn't go away.
Yeah,
and then if you keep running on it, it's
it just gets worse and worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of went more with the run walk strategy in the later portions. I was pushing through it for a while there, but then I thought like, this isn't smart. I'm ultimately prolonging this and it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah.
So it's, if I ran constantly for like 3 or 4K, then it really started like I was limping home.
Oh, wow.
But if I like ran for a kilometer or 2 and then walked for a bit and then kind of on and off, then it seemed okay. So I've been kind of doctoring that a bit. And even the doctor is like, just don't overdo it here. We'll get this all fixed up and then we'll work to kind of gradually work your feet into what it needs to absorb all these forces and everything else, right? Like, and that's for everybody that's going to get into running. It's a high impact activity.
I did these similar. I didn't get it diagnosed or anything like that.
Yeah, but
I did the exact same thing, and I was running with those stupid. What the hell are those shoes called?
The Nike Air Max.
No, it starts with a V. But they're like
Velcro.
Velcro sandals. I don't know, Vibram or what the fuck are they called?
Oh yeah, that sounds familiar.
Anyways, they're like the low profile. They aren't the ones with the toes on them, but they're like the barefoot shoes. Yep. So that's like, that was my introduction to running, and I ended up doing the same thing you did to your foot. Yeah, kept pushing it. I was compensating for that injury. Ended up screwing up my knee.
Yeah, nip. I was gonna say hip. It's like combine the words there, not appropriate. What'll happen is, and I've talked to Cairo about this.
Yeah.
Foot in like insoles for your feet are actually not great long term.
Oh, okay.
Because what happens is all the muscles in your arch of your foot actually weaken. So then they start collapsing because you're relying on that insole, right? To keep everything propped up. So that's kind of where the barefoot running kind of thing comes from. But I think the problem is if you don't have the strength in your foot and your arches to run barefoot, you can't just go there. Like it has to be a balance, right? So like if you already have pronation and flat feet, maybe you need the insoles and then you work on rehabbing and kind of like flexing, working those arch muscles, trying to get your foot back to being supported. And then maybe you can go into that. But like for me specifically, if I just ran around barefoot, I'd exactly what you ran into. I'd have some problems. So right now I have to rely on the insoles, and then I'm trying to do some exercises
wean off a bit,
to help that out. But it's just and everybody's different. Like some people can probably jump into running and every second day they can run 5K and they just never have problems. But you'll learn quickly enough.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not one of those people.
No, don't be discouraged. If something doesn't feel right, you obviously just need to change something, which is likely your shoes. So I went from those stupid shoes to a polar opposite, which is a I got New Balance ones with like a super foam, like it's like running on marshmallows basically.
Yeah.
In those ones, and then I've kind of worked my way down to some Nike ones that are a little firmer. But what are you laughing at?
Oh, just this comment earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, don't get discouraged if is an issue. Figure out what it is, because are you enjoying it now?
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually like, I'm a music guy, obviously, so I was like drafting up some playlists.
Yeah, I
and,
love doing that.
it's pretty cool with all the Christmas lasers and everything happening right now. Like, I don't know, but what happened was I got into Audible, and now I'm reading all these books.
Right.
And then I throw Audible on, and then I just want to keep running because I want to get to the next chapter.
Right.
So
I can't.
a lot of people are like, really, you run to a book?
I can't do that, man.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm really interested in this book.
Okay.
But
whatever it takes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of pumped because it's like I don't get to read it otherwise. So now
Right.
I take a half an hour or an hour out of my day, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, sweet, I can dedicate that to reading my book.
Yeah.
And I can get some exercise.
For sure.
So
It's funny. I love listening to podcasts when I'm, cleaning or driving or whatever it might be. But when it comes to running, I tried to do it a couple times, and I'm like, man, I can't. It just doesn't motivate me. Maybe a book would be different, but
yeah,
I feel like I've chose like a playlist of my own stuff, and I would basically kind of like, listen to the tempo and like, okay, that seems like a good pace for running, and I try and kind of lock into that on some. And it's crazy how, especially when you're doing longer distances, when you start to feel like, oh shit, a certain song will kick in, and it just like
you can lock into it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I found
It just pumps you up.
Humble by Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
That one, I don't know, it's the rhythm. It lines up perfectly with my running stride.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Yeah, those are the ones you got to find, I think.
Yeah.
And I also find too, man, with running, it's like the only time I really get time to myself, I guess. And I don't know, after I reach like the 3-4 kilometer mark, I really start to get into like deep thought about things, and I feel like I come up with some of my clearest and best ideas while I'm running. It puts you in, it's almost like meditating sort of, I think.
Yeah.
In some weird way. And it's like the same thing. I'm like, man, I kind of did the length of run that I wanted to do, but I kind of want to keep going just because I feel good and enjoying this. And that's a weird thing. I never thought I'd get addicted to running, but I definitely am now.
Yep.
It's going to be nice to take a little break over the Christmas here and that, but I'm kind of looking forward to get back into it. I think we're going to have a new challenge in the new year here, but I feel like we've made progress. Obviously, you got to tend to your foot because we don't want that to get out of control, but we'll kind of work our way back into it and do some more.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get this challenge done, but at the same time, next year in January, I'm going to try to make sure that I set myself up for long-term.
Yeah, man,
right?
You should start with like 2.5 kilometers and then 3 and then 4, just slowly make your way up probably.
Yeah. I feel like it was kind of frustrating because after I did the 5-5-5, I felt like, and I actually did, I ran around the back of the, there's a mountain behind my house, so there's a little valley back there.
Yeah.
I went around there with the dog, and that was actually 7. And I'm like, oh man, I could do a 10, no problem.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like my whole thing was just being able to do a 10 without dying.
Right.
And maybe you can do that. You kind of have to get mentally there. And I feel like I was there, and then my foot started acting up.
Yeah,
I was like,
sucks, man.
this is stupid.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh well, you'll get past it. You did a yoga class too?
Yeah, I think that actually helped a little bit.
I was going to say, I was going to bring it up when you're talking about foot strength. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's something I find.
Oh yeah, when you're doing the 1 foot balance things,
there's lots of that.
You're constantly like moving around.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to your foot.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. It was good. It's like relaxing and hard at the same time.
Yeah, there's some classes, man, that you leave and you feel like you got this shit kicked out of you. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That one was pretty chill, which is also nice. It's good to mix it up, but there's some classes that are super challenging.
I had a lot of like good kind of tension and pain in my shoulder areas, like upper back, the next day.
Oh, did
and
you?
the day after that. And like in a good way, like I worked out
Right.
and I hit the right muscles.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that's probably from like working at an office.
Right.
Your kind of neck and upper back just kind of, I don't know, you get a little slouchy, right?
For sure.
So when you're doing like warrior pose and like all these things that are opening and closing those shoulder blades, it really works those muscles for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I think some guys are probably listening to this and be like, hey, you losers doing yoga. But man, it's like, it's one more thing that it's going to be an advantage to us if you're working those different muscles and stuff like that, especially your balance and being able to sit still and be comfortable and all that kind of stuff, man. It's just one more of those things. I really like it. I don't know if you plan on going back. I said I'd leave you alone after you did one, but I feel like I don't like going to the gym. I just don't like that environment for some reason. But for whatever reason, I just love going to do this, and it's the hot moksha yoga. I really like heat, and you sweat like fucking crazy, which I like. So
yeah, no, I think if you're going to be planning on doing this stuff into later age, whether it's packing stuff around or climbing on slopes, hopping over deadfall, balancing on logs, crossing creeks, and golfing, skiing, all that stuff, or running.
For sure.
All this stuff, like all these, even my foot, it's like some of it's a mechanical issue that kind of starts in one place and goes down to another spot. So if you can get those supporting muscles engaged and a little more flexibility and stuff like that, it helps all that.
Yeah.
A win-win.
Yeah, man. I like it. You gonna come more often?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I've heard Hotbox is good too.
Yeah, nice.
That's where Bree goes.
Right.
I just don't know where and how often, and to be determined.
Yeah, nice. Cool. It's finding the time to do it, but the thing is, I bought a monthly rolling pass, and it forces you to do it when you know, like, okay, I want to do X amount of classes to sort of make this, worth it.
I've always liked like weight resistance training.
Yeah.
And did a lot more of that, like kind of before the last year or so. And once you really get into it, like it takes 4 to 6 months before you really kind of dial into maxing your body out with some of that stuff. But it feels amazing when you're done a workout.
Yeah, for sure.
And that, I think you kind of need like a combination of all these things. A little bit of weight training, and you don't even need weights, but maybe just pull-ups, push-ups, and squats.
Yeah, I do. I kind of
big exercises.
Do some of that stuff, whatever I can from home.
Yeah.
Running and yoga all combined. And
yeah, if you do all that stuff, I think it's a pretty good setup for moving forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the big picture, man, is like, I don't want there to be any obstacle for us when we're out there hunting. It's just like, we haven't really been at that point, but it's just like, I'd hate to be in a position where we have an opportunity to go somewhere or take an animal and fitness be an obstacle, because that's something that doesn't need to be an obstacle, right? We also want to be able to do this for a long time. So it's a lot of effort to stay in shape. But once you get out of shape, it takes twice as much. I think once you pass that 30-year-old mark, it's not the same as when you were, in your teens and in your 20s and stuff like that. I feel like it's very easy to get out of shape and very hard to kind of get caught up. So it's a matter of being consistent, and hunting is that thing that drives me to keep doing it. I always like, my visual thing is big mountains. That's when I sort of have as a visual in my head, is like, that's what motivates me to do it. Because usually the opportunity is on that next peak.
Yeah.
So gather around. It's story time. Well, before we do that, I need a refill, Kel.
The Crooked Coast.
That's good.
By Driftwood Brewery. Yeah, most of the beer that comes out of Driftwood, I enjoy.
Yeah, man.
Vancouver Island.
Yeah, Vancouver postmark is from the island as well.
And
they don't mess around with beer.
Yeah, what was the other one?
Four Winds is on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
That counts.
I was thinking Fat Tug IPA, but that's Driftwood.
It's Driftwood, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Story time. We tend to sometimes forget, but one of the things we try and include with each guest interview is a hunting story. So we've narrowed down a list of our favorites. Cal, which should we do first? You got the names in front of you.
I'm thinking we should start off with Shane Mahoney's caribou story.
Okay, cool. Well, Shane, we've eaten up quite a bit of your time here. I'm not sure if Amanda gave you a heads up, but we do like to include a hunting or just outdoor story with our guests. And we've had everything from bear attack stories to fishing stories and even a Sasquatch incident or something like that. So I don't know if you've got one ready for us, but if you do, please share it with us and then we'll let you go.
Well, I guess if I came up with a sort of a fictitious one of a Newfoundland Sasquatch, that would probably go viral. But I don't have one. I don't have one on that. I haven't really thought a lot about this, but in emerging from our discussion here today, I have had a lot of experiences, both hunting and not hunting, with animals of many different kinds, from polar bears to caribou to weasels to hamsters. And a lot of them have been really profoundly affecting. But one I could share, I guess, with you that is not hunting, but it's related to this issue, I believe. I was fortunate for many years to spend the rutting season with woodland caribou for probably 20 years. I would also spend the calving seasons and winters, but the rutting seasons were especially spectacular for many, many reasons. I therefore was fortunate to witness many interactions between animals, male and female, and certainly witness some incredibly violent confrontations between males. Woodland caribou are, in our context in Newfoundland, are harem-forming animals. In other words, males gather large groups of females, and there's a dominance hierarchy established amongst the males. They don't breed on migration as the great tundra populations do, the migratory herds. They're also built differently, and the formation of their antlers are built in such a way that you can easily tell that instead of grappling with one another, they actually fight one another. So one of the more spectacular circumstances was a morning that I left my camp and I walked. I was often by myself. I walked. It was in mid to late October. The rut was in high gear. It was a morning when, the barren lands of Newfoundland had, all the little flashets or shallow ponds and the bogs, which are innumerable, that they'd all gathered this thin blue ice of early autumn onto themselves. The vegetation had all turned colors, of course, the siennas and the reds and the spectacular oranges and even blues were there in the leaves. And the caribou groups, of course, you could see them over long distances because the landscape was quite open with relatively little relief, although enough that a man could hide himself and move close to the animals. And I was looking along a kind of a shallow, almost like a valley, but it was very, very shallow, and two small ridges that ran along the edges. And on each ridge, I suddenly saw coming out of this very heavy morning fog, which can be almost suffocating there in the early morning before it burns off. I saw these two groups of caribou emerging, and eventually could see that each of them had a number of males with them, but in both groups, there was obviously a significant harem master, this massive, big bull that was just absolutely spectacular. The black face and the bronzed antlers and the great capes, and the muscled necks, and so on. And of course, fighting in these beasts is really predicated on equality. You don't really fight anyone unless they're really equal to you, and if you're not equal to them, you run away. And so real fights only occur between those that are matched. And I saw these two groups of animals suddenly see one another. And I eventually saw the two males do what they normally do, is they start to move out beyond the periphery of the females that they are watching over, and they perform their displays. They bush thrash, so they walk up to a small juniper and they rake its limbs with their antlers. And then they gather their hind legs together and pee on their hocks and rub them together and so on, so that they smell wonderfully, and they demonstrate, that I am powerful, I am strong, and you should really leave me alone and leave the females I'm with alone. And eventually, in this unbelievable theater of beauty, with these flashets frozen and the color emerging and the sun now beginning to burrow through and digest, consume this ground fog, these two big males suddenly began to approach. I knew there would be a significant fight. Now, I am only 30 to 40 meters, probably, about 40 meters away from these animals at the time. And they come together, and eventually, of course, they get close enough, and then what caribou do? They tip their heads, and they walk gently together until finally there is contact. And of course, when they connected, they exploded, right? And you had these two massive beasts turning and gouging and trying to do what caribou do in that circumstance, which is to break the neck of the opponent. It's not about pushing and pushing back so much as to entangle those antlers with all of those branches and tines, which caribou antlers are famous for, and twist the neck of the opponent. And I was watching this, of course, and the mud was flying, and they were slipping and falling and breaking through this shelf ice and all of this. And finally, I could see that there was one animal slowly gaining power over the second individual. And the trick for these animals then, in the midst of these intense conflicts, is to break cleanly and run. But as one animal tried to disengage and managed to do so, he slipped. And when he slipped, his opponent came at him broadside and charged into him, and I could hear the smacks. I could hear the bones breaking. You could feel this crushing sound of things that were happening inside the animal's body. And they kept doing this as this animal tried to disengage. And I watched this until finally he managed to break away. And suddenly, of course, bedlam ceases. Silence returns. The male that is victorious, he turns and very laboriously and slowly walks back to the females. The other group of females look at the defeated stag and begin to drift towards the other company. And then I see the male that was damaged, that had been broadsided repeatedly, collapse. And he died. Wow. He died. But what was most interesting was I eventually lost track of those animals, and I was following them. And I noticed the male, the big male that had won, he could not confront and deal with the stags around him any longer. He was too exhausted. And while I left them that day, I returned to find him dead. Both stags eventually died in pursuit of what they sought. And I recounted this story, I recall now, to a meeting a long time ago where the Sierra Club was present and where a lot of hunting organizations were not pleased And the point of the story, I guess, in this context is, we can fight all we want over what we think is the prize. But in the end, it's about trying to preserve those experiences. Because not 1 in 50 million people, maybe not 1 in 100, 200, 400 million people, have ever experienced anything like I did that day. And I could never, ever have experienced anything like it if we had not found a way to work for wildlife 100 years ago. Because believe me, they would have all been gone. So it seems to me we're fighting over the wrong things. We ought to be fighting for them, not for our particular position about them.
That's a beautiful way to end this, Shane. I think you left both of us kind of speechless here. We're both in a trance here listening to that story, but I think that's
amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah,
I love them. And as I said, I was not hunting that day, just hunting to try to understand them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That's all I was looking for. And this was fed up to me as a gift. Had I been living in another time, I would have said the gods gave it to me.
That's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. He paints a picture.
Oh man, and obviously it's got the whole conservation sort of twist at the end where he brings it all together. I love our reaction at the end. Mm-hmm. We're sort of speechless there. Yeah, Shane is just brilliant storyteller, man.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Who's next?
Definitely good species to talk about as well.
Yeah.
Let's go with Chris Barker and his first sheep hunt.
Nice. I totally forgot about this when you sort of refreshed my memory on it, so it's fun to go back and check some of these out.
Yeah, I like this one because there's a couple surprises, right? It's not like he went up there and shot a sheep. Yeah. There's a lot of things that happened in the meantime. A couple lessons too, like buy good boots.
Right. Here it is.
So I guess if I'm going to go into a story, this would be the time.
Sure, let's hear it.
We had hunted up north with my buddy Doug Field, and we'd been hunting moose around this place. And he goes, "Okay, well, do you guys want to go do something really cool? We'll go to the mountains. We'll do a flying trip." So I said, "Yeah." Both me and Rod were game. I said, "Yeah, let's go." So we kind of got our backpacks. We didn't have too bad of backpacks. I think we had external frames. I think they were the moose bags.
Oh, okay.
At the time, and we had our boots, and we figured, okay, we got it all set, and we flew in. We flew out of Fort Nelson, and we landed on. So our big plan was we were gonna land on Tetsa Lake, and we were gonna hike from Tetsa Lake over to Shody Lakes, and then get picked up. So first day we flew in to Tetsa Lake. There was a camp set up there, and yours had said, "Yeah, these guys have been in a week. They're flying out," and we weren't too concerned because we were gonna hike out of the valley anyway. So we got there, loaded up our packs, off we went, and we hoofed up the valley, and we're just about at the headwaters, and we're kind of looking at which paths we can kind of go over. And Doug, our buddy, his soul ripped right off his hike.
Oh no!
It's like, holy smokes!
This first day.
First day. Well, you're not hiking over there with that. So it's like, well, I know the plane's coming back in. Maybe you can fly your pair of hiking boots back in, and we can make this work. So we turned around, headed back down the valley. I think we duct taped up his sole so we could surf her out. So we're going down. We see these caribou, and there was 2 bull caribou there, and one of them was legal and one of them wasn't. So it's like, okay, well, we know the plane's coming in, and we don't have to pack this thing. So Doug shot the caribou. We got the caribou, and we got back to the lake, set up our tent, and got all organized. And these guys came over, and they checking out the caribou, and he goes, "Oh, just checking to make sure you guys shot the right one." And kind of, whatever. And then turns out they were 3 COs.
Oh, really?
So you never know who you're going to run into, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they flew out. Urs flew us back in, got Doug's shoe size. His cousin lived there, so she picked up a pair of inexpensive hiking boots, flew him back in, and then at that point we switched. Okay, I think Doug actually flew out, and me and Rod flew over to Shoshone Lake. So he flew us over to the lake, and then Doug came back in, and then we just said, okay, well, we're going to go hunt. We'll just hunt off at Shoshone.
Right.
So we got all sorted out, headed out, hoofed her up this creek. Didn't really have an idea where we were going. We just knew. I kind of knew where there should have been sheep, so we were heading that direction, and that's kind of what we started doing. So we hoofed her up there, and we started following the creek up, and then it narrowed right up into a gorge, and then we had to go up this straight up like this, and then we found a horse trail, and it's like, okay, and that took us over, and then dropped us back down. And I can remember hiking up the creek in our running shoes and our underwear and our backpacks on because it was so hot. But we checked out a couple of drainages, and we didn't really see much. We figured, well, it looks like pretty good sheep country, but we got up there, and we ran into another guy that was on horse, coming to get his camp, actually, his wall tent. He said, well, we were up there at the beginning of the year, and we did take a ram out of there, so you guys could check that valley out. So we'll go scope that out. So we hoofed her up there, and yeah, sure enough, we connected on 2 sheep. So we came back down. It was like, we're pretty pumped now. But I think what we were fortunate. The weather was good. I don't think we had any rain. What we had for tent was a 3-man Canadian Tire tent.
Nice.
So cheaped out on the tent.
Mm-hmm.
We backpacked it for felt packs in there. We had wool pants. We had, like I said, we had no idea what to take. We just said, okay, well, we're going to the mountains. We figure we might need this.
Yeah.
Is this August?
It was actually, I think it was either late. Is it late or August or early September? I think it might have been that first week of September.
Yep.
So the felt packs didn't make it out. Wool pants didn't make it out. That stuff stayed. We lightened our load because we had some sheep, capes, meat, and all that stuff. I remember my buddy, we come back to camp one night, and we had done our laundry, and you could see these wool socks. There's a trail of wool socks heading up the mountain. What the heck's going on? And we start looking, and sure enough, porcupine had come into camp. Started stealing us socks. So I'm laughing, and Rod's got no socks left. I'm laughing my head off at him, and all of a sudden he goes and he's picking up his socks, and he disappears. He took his gun, and about 20 minutes later, I hear this bang. He goes, got that bastard. Take my socks anymore.
Nice.
So that was kind of our first sheep trip, but
Yeah.
like I said, we had no idea what we were getting into. We knew
Right.
we were going to the mountains, but again, with the gear that's out there today.
Yeah.
I think
And you made it out with a caribou and 2 sheep.
Oh, well, I guess I should
And
finish
a
the story off.
porcupine.
Made her back to the lake. I think we were a couple of days. We had to wait for the plane to come back in, so we're in camp. And we're just on the beach. And I think it was the first day. The next morning after we got back down, and Doug had gotten up, and me and Rod are still laying in bed, and he goes, pokes his head back in the tent. He goes, anybody want to shoot a moose? Sure, we could use some meat. So we got up, ended up shooting this moose. So Doug took the first shot, and it started swimming. So it was right where the river runs out of the Shoshone Lakes. And I shot it in the hump, and it died right away. But then it's floating down the middle of the river.
Shit.
We've got no boat. So we're still in our underwear. On the beach. So I'm sprinting down the beach, diving in the river. I didn't think about how cold it was going to be. And I'm swimming out to this moose, and I'm probably from here to your way, Mike.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I wonder if this thing's still alive. I'm going to get the crap kicked out of me. And so I'm looking and going, it's pretty well dead. So I grab the horn and I start swimming back in.
Oh,
and
wow.
by then, the cold water's like, I could feel it. And then Doug just got out there, and he grabbed the other horn, and we managed to pull it back into shore.
Jeez.
So it was a pretty successful trip, but
Yeah,
full
I'd
of
say so.
adventure. Anything you could probably, if you tried to script something like that, there's no way.
No. Awesome.
Yeah. I think that's we're planning a northern hunt. I think.
I think ours is going to be just like that without any of the animals.
Kelly, the photo we put on Instagram is actually from that first hunt there.
Yeah,
It's
the
he
one of
sent us.
Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the one we put up, right?
Yep.
Yeah, sweet. All right.
What else do we got? So we talked to, was this in 2017? My father-in-law?
I can't remember, man. You know, it's funny. Randy being just your average hunter, not a big name. We've gotten so much feedback on that one. People love that episode.
Yeah, I think people like storytellers in general,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And that's where he thrives, definitely.
Oh shit, he's got a lot of stories for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to have him back.
He told us a few. Which one are we doing?
Let's do the grizzly bear one.
Okay. He had a run-in.
Yeah, he had a close encounter.
I can tell you my one story about up off the Salmo Crest and archery hunting in one of the only basins that wasn't frosted up too hard, and there was lots of berries there and lots of bear sign as well. Hiked up into a box canyon, did my hunt, and it was probably 9:30, 9:45 in the morning. Turned around, came out of the box canyon, got to the timber line there, and I was just going to start heading down. So I'd stripped down, put a couple more things on my pack, and threw my Defender, which I had a belt made up for a strap, and threw it over the corner of my pack and grabbed my bow and just started down, and about a log about 12, 14 yards to my left. All I seen was these big shoulders, his head, and these paws coming over this log at me. And it was a grizz. So I'd dropped my bow, and I was trying to get my single-shot cooey off the back of my pack. That wasn't working so good, as I was trying to step backwards once and yell some profanity at this bear, but only half the profanity was coming out. And by the time now this thing's jumped at me once, it bluffed me again. It was probably 18 feet away from me, and just stood there and then realized what I was and turned and went back down over the bank. But about that same time is when I got that stupid single-shot cooey off my shoulder and cocked it. And it was probably a good thing, because I think if I would have had it ready when that bear was 18 yards away, I would have shot.
Right.
But I didn't get a shot at it, and that bear, if it really wanted me, had me.
Right.
There's no way I could have got that thing off quick enough. I'd have been walking with it pointed and ready to cock it.
Yeah.
It would happen so quickly. But anyway, the bear went back down over the bank, and about 10 seconds later, my rubber legs set in. My heart's still pounding. Yeah. I'm going, holy crap. So picked up my bow, and I had the bow and the shotgun in one hand, and started hiking back down through all the berries. I had to go back down, cross the creek, up the next ridge, and to this landing where I'd parked my truck. And so now maybe a 45-minute hike out of there. But I was starting to flinch at every chipmunk in the bush.
Yeah.
Come on, you bugger. I got down to the bottom of the creek valley and just started heading back up to the last landing there, and a white-tailed doe jumped. I jumped one in the thick bush there, and same thing, I thought it was another bear, and I was ready. Got back up to the truck, opened the door, remember setting my bow on the hood of the truck, my Defender. I had the shell out, threw it on the seat there, and I opened my thermos. I got myself half a cup of coffee, and I remember having 3 sips off it, setting it on the dash. I woke up an hour and a half later, sun shining, I was still door open, and I'd just fallen asleep.
Holy cow.
I think the adrenaline finally drained out.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So that was one kind of a story you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a scary story, man. I think about that one when we're out there.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of bear stories, is that our next one too?
Yeah, Jeff Lander,
Okay. Man, this one.
local outfitter.
Yeah.
And he had a bear. Well, he wasn't there, but his camp had a bear encounter. So this one,
This one will
this
keep
one's a
you
little
up at night.
intense. Yeah.
Definitely thought about this one when we were up north.
It was bizarre because we were hunting moose, and I had my moose. The moose camp was way down the road at the end of the road, and I had 4 clients in, and I had 2 pups. So the trainer from Wisconsin was there with his wife, and they trained my dog. So I had about a 12-week-old and a 4-month-old labs. Anyway, so the whole time we're hunting, nothing was happening. We killed one good bull, and we had a lot of meat. There was a lot going on around our camp, including, our food tent was close, and I had these guys that were working for me, are friends of mine, Paul and Dave. They're from PG. They've hunted this stretch for 20 years.
Wow.
And so I finally talked them into guiding for me. So anyway, we left. I left on about a Monday with clients. They went back in. They drew 2 tags. It was their camp anyway, so that I had used. And they went in with their boys, and they killed a bull, and I want to say it was on a Wednesday. They had 2 bull tags. Left, and then came back. Okay, so Thursday they're gone. Came back on Friday. Into camp they go. And they noticed one of the coolers was pulled out. So you've got like a sleeping tent, cook tent, sleeping tent, fire area.
Right.
And they noticed there was a puncture mark in it, and it had pulled it out. The weird thing is that there was, none of the dry goods were touched. And when I was there for the week and a half, I didn't see any signs of that we had any bears coming around. And bears don't like dogs.
Right.
First and foremost. So anyway, came in, and so they came back on Friday to try to fill their last tag with their sons, and they saw that out. So they went into bed, and it's, how every wall tent, your zippers, they break break after the first year. You can never keep a wall tent and zipper zip, but
For sure.
if you haven't learned that, it's sad. But so they went to bed, and everyone was asleep except for Paul, and he heard something in the cook tent, and he said, "Dave, there's a bear." Before he could there's a bear. That bear was through the door, and was on top of him.
Holy shit!
So he ended up weighing 390 pounds. So he was a mature boar black bear, and he came in. He started at the legs. So one of the pictures was his calf.
Oh, okay.
And was working his way up. So now, and I talked to Paul this morning. I asked him if it was cool if I told the story, which I do with him.
Okay.
And he's cool with it. Anyway, so he started screaming. So the boys wake up. Imagine waking up to your father, dying.
Oof, yeah.
And so, he was ragdolling him, and he after it was all done, I asked him, I said, what do you remember about this bear? I said, was he loud? Was he growling? I hear people who are attacked that the breath is really bad. Do you remember that? He says, I just remember, and he's probably, I don't know, Paul's probably 180 pounds, maybe whatever, right around there, 5'10". He was lifting him up. He had no power and was just shaking like a dog does with a whatever. And so now Dave has woke up, and Dave and Paul are complete opposites. And Dave's very serious. He works with prisoners. He's very whatever. He grabbed his gun. He's trying to load it, whatever. Got his gun loaded. Now the bear's moved up to his shoulder. And he's going for his neck to kill him. And so Dave jumped over, got parallel, didn't want to hit him with the gun, or with the bullet in the head, shot the bear. The bullet went through the bear and disintegrated his elbow.
Oh, shit.
So it's 300 short mag. Took his elbow out. So now he's yelling about how, you shot me, whatever, and I think he shot again. He did, and so now the bear moves off of Paul, goes to the other corner where Paul's son went under his cot. Now he's just trying to get out of the tent, and it was this tent is as big as this room. Like, it's huge, maybe not as wide, but it's as long for sure.
Yeah.
And so he went to that corner, went under the kid. Now he's trying to cope with what's happening, if he's dreaming or having a nightmare or whatever. And then he goes around the backside, knocks over the stove. So now, this is October, so now it's billowing smoke
Holy
inside.
shit.
And jumps on top of the other kid who's turtling underneath his sleeping bag, as we all would.
Right.
And he's trying to get out, and then he went over the other side. And then he went out of the tent and went over into the other tent, which there's 2 other guys in there. Came back around, and now he's really laboring. And if you look at the pictures, I'll send you some pictures later, but the blood on the side of the tent was
Oh,
insane.
man.
And he goes and comes back out. Dave's outside. Paul's still screaming on the ground. The kids or whatever. And the bear comes back in that same tent. And I'm not sure he took a swipe at Paul, but he was really laboring. And then I think it was Dave's son shot him with the double-aught buck, shotgun, and dropped him there.
Holy.
So where you see the bear laying there, I mean, there's just so many things. That right next to the bear is a 5-gallon propane tank to fuel the lantern, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, so then they're an hour, 2 hours away from the nearest road, and they had a Global Star sat phone,
Oh, okay.
which is hit or miss. Iridium's the only one to get in this province.
Okay.
They couldn't get out on it, and it might have been. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was a Global Star. It wasn't Iridium, but and so Dave loaded Paul up in the truck, and it was weird because with his elbow, didn't hit any of the major arteries. So like it took out his elbow, but it wasn't like it was just gushing blood. Like if it would have been above the elbow,
Right.
in the bicep or forearm, it would have been. But yeah, it wasn't like there was a lot of blood. So anyway, the road going out of there is brutal. It's potholes. I hate it. And he's doing it at as fast as he could drive.
Right.
Which the good thing is it was keeping Paul from going into shock.
Snapping him out of it, eh?
And so finally the other truck with the two boys and their two friends, they got out on the sat phone finally. And the ambulance and cops met him partway back, and he got in. And meanwhile, I'm in Calgary because I was switching gears to mule deer, and I'm at the hotel waiting for my wife to fly in. She's from Arkansas, and I get a call from. I know she had Jesse Zeman here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Young man named Jared Wilkeson, who's good friends with Jesse.
Oh, okay.
I've never met Jesse, but Jared's very involved with the BC Wildlife Fed, and I've known him since he was a kid.
Oh, wow.
He calls me and he goes, "Where you at?" And I said, "Well, I'm in Calgary waiting for Lana to land." And because you hear about the bear mauling on the such and such river, and I just hung up immediately because I knew what it was. I knew it was that. And so I called Paul, and somehow it answered. No one answered, but I heard the doctor telling him that he was going to amputate his arm.
Ooh, man.
And that and then it kind of got all muffled or whatever, and I'm just like, and then I kind of went in shock.
I bet.
I had quit chewing Copenhagen. I drove right to 7-Eleven, got myself 2 cans, loaded my lips full. I did
Fair enough, yeah.
maybe a bottle of wine, but I don't know.
Man, that one, that's intense. And the fact that guy got up and, went out again and just faced his fears, fucking good on him. For sure.
Jeff mentioned that he actually puts a hardwood door on the wall tent now, just from a mental perspective. I mean, a bear could technically rip through the side of the tent, but just having that hard door on the front of the tent helps him mentally to go back out there. So
whatever it takes, man.
Definitely.
Yeah, this beer is really good.
Yeah, it's an alt beer. Is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know.
Unfiltered.
Yeah, nice. Unfiltered
I think
beers
that's
are
the
always
key
good.
spec.
Yeah, for sure.
What's next here?
Is this the last one?
We've got Lan Tawny
Okay, nice.
with his sheep hunt.
Right. This one is pretty, it's got a lot of elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is, it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed this chat with Land. I forgot about this one too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good insights in the story.
And a lot of pressures on us in this modern world. It's like it doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all. It seems like life just gets more and more complicated. And when you get out in the woods, it's not complicated at all. It's about food and it's about water and it's about the hunt that you're on. And to me, I take a lot of solace in that. But no, it was an awesome hunt. It took me 15 days before I killed that ram. It wasn't 15 days in a row. It was like 5 days and then 3 days, and then I think 7 days. And so lots of ups and downs. Like I will tell you that after the first week, I've been hunting by myself for the second half of those 6 days, and it was raining. It's been raining on us the entire time, and I've been reading this kind of Armageddon book, where this kind of end of the world book, and at the very end, this family comes together, and I hadn't missed my wife that bad, and I don't know how long, and I had this like aching for her, and so as I'm coming out of the woods, try to call her as soon as I get cell phone coverage and can't get a hold of her, and then and pulling off the road, off the interstate to fill up my body with some fried chicken after being in the woods and eating kind of skimpy, and I went to call her again and looked down at the phone, and it was dark out, and just kind of drifted a little bit on the off ramp, and ended up, overcorrecting, hitting a sign, rolling my truck 2.5 times, and totaling my truck. And it was like the scariest thing. I mean, I can remember just talking about it now. I start to remember the sounds, and everybody talks about how things go into slow motion. It definitely did. And,
Wow.
I was very lucky that I didn't get hurt. But I was really screwed up mentally from that. I had a hard time sleeping for a long time after that, and the only place I could really get a good rest was in the woods. And it wasn't the comfortable bed. My shoulder, my back hurt, but it was more like that flat ground, and staying on a pad, and like the fresh air, and
Right.
The sounds, and whatever. And so that was kind of the start of some episodes up there. And I had another one where I was chasing a bunch of ewes all day, and knowing that there was a ram that at some point was going to be with them, and closed the distance, and was sitting there waiting, and a nice ram about the size of the one that I shot showed up, and I had a nice ponderosa. I think it was about 2.5 feet across, and it was on a real steep hill, but it had like a little teeny, like I guess branch that was cut off, came out about 6 inches, about 2.5 inches in diameter. And so I was like, this is perfect. And I set my gun up there and had a bead on him, and took the gun off safety, and was breathing 1, 2, 3, and pushing out with my breath and pulling the trigger. And that branch broke as I did that.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it was like, oh, wow, it's right. The gun goes off, like I fall like head over heels. When the gun hits the hill, it lodges, the butt of the gun lodges, and the scope hits me in the jaw, almost knocks me out. And so I wake up at the bottom of this kind of little ravine. Not wake up, but I kind of get done rolling, and it's dusty, and my head's kind of foggy, and I'm like, what just happened? And I was super nervous that I'd shot a ram. I had no idea where the shot had gone, and so I waited for a while. It was starting to get dark, and I started doing concentric circles around kind of where the animals have been, and then nothing. It gets dark. I'm still looking for about another hour and a half, and didn't find anything, and went back to camp that night all by myself, and just I felt horrible. And it was like, man, is this thing ever going to happen? And like, I think I just wounded this animal, and just down in the dumps, and didn't sleep very well that night. And the next morning got up and told myself that, I was just going to go try to find this ram if I had wounded him, and spent all day looking for him, went to bedding areas, and really, I just never saw any blood, never saw any, like a, wounded animal or anything. And so kind of came to peace that I didn't really, didn't shoot him. And at that point realized that I needed to sight in my rifle. And this is kind of where it all turned around. And I looked down, and there's this, this old snag. It's about 100 yards away. I'm like, I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to put an X in that thing. I'm going to shoot at it and see where I'm at. And as I'm walking down, I find this like old tuna can. And it's like, no other person is going to have a tuna can up there, unless it's like a sheep hunter, like the place where I'm at. It's just like, that's not happening. And so it's like this gift from this former sheep hunter. And then, so I walked down to the snag, and there's this perfect little crutch that fits that tuna can perfectly. And I'm like, oh, this is getting better. And I go back up and sit down about 100 yards away, and I just center punch that thing. And I guess, all that kind of like helped me turn my mental state around. Right. And ended up, shooting around that next morning. And my cousin showed up early that morning, and so he was on the hunt with me. We spotted some rams on the hill, and we went after them. And I kind of had patterned them by that point, and we lost sight of him going off the top of this ridge, and I had a real good idea where he's going to be. So we started hustling, and I kind of put my head down and was in intercept mode versus kind of a predator look mode, and was just bombing. And my cousin like yells at me like 2 or 3 times. He tells me later, and finally gets my attention on the last. And I turn around, and he's like, he points up the hill, and there's a different ram that's on the side of the hill. It's like 200 yards away that I hadn't even seen. And so I stopped, took my backpack off, and shot that ram within like literally 30 seconds. I didn't even think about it. And you know, after all the spot and stalks and all the failures and you know, everything I'd gone through that hunt, like to have it happen like that, like I'm kind of glad it happened like that. Though, you know, I was looking forward to kind of that spot and stalk and ultimate kill. But you know, after that ram was down, it was you know, it was a glorious kind of thing. And then, you know, that night we ate tenderloin over the open fire. And as we were cooking over the open fire, a young bull moose walked right through camp, which was pretty good. So it was, you know, it was a saga for sure. There's lots of more details and some mishaps that happened, but that's kind of the highlights of the hunt. And again, I think, you know, having these places, one that you can, you know, make a fool out of yourself, and then have the opportunity to kind of work through that. And I want that to be available, you know, for as many people as possible for, you know, as many years going forward. And that's really, I think, you know, what drives me every single day is wanting to make sure that you and I and, you know, everybody else that comes after it has those opportunities.
Yeah, doing this, man, is it's a neat reminder that we've talked to a lot of cool folks. And I think the stories, are kind of what makes hunting, and that's why you go out there. It's the experience, it's the highs, the lows, it's everything in between.
And I guess for all the listeners out there, and we're preaching to the choir probably for the people that have made it this far through the episode, but if there are any non-hunters listening to this, how much of this story is about the kill and how much of it is about everything else? I think that's kind of a key here.
Yeah, for sure.
We had one more story, and this one's recently on a podcast, but it is a good story.
Nathan?
Nathan French.
Last year, a client and I went on a stone sheep hunt and landed in a spot I've never been, you know, new area, everything in that. And he was a young guy, go-getter, so I knew it was going to be a good hunt in that way. And, you know, we grinded for a couple of days to get into the sheep country, bushwhacked some stuff, and got into the high alpine and sat there for the evening and glassed this big open bowl. And I had this area I wanted to get to, and it was, if I can describe it, it was a big bowl and then kind of a big deep ravine in the middle of it. And so I wanted to glass this bowl and then hike around the left side of it, get to the pass at the end of the ravine, look at that, and then come back on the right side of the bowl and come around a mountain and go look in the backside of the mountain. So I'm sitting there for the whole evening, and here's that patience thing, and glass till, you know, 10, 11 at night, and set the tents on the ridge. And then the next morning, glassed again, hadn't seen nothing, hadn't seen a sheep yet, and just, I don't know, kept glassing. And I think it was about 16 hours total until I decided, okay, let's move. And there was a lot to glass. It wasn't just like one bowl I was looking at. There was, you know, the left side of the ridge too, and another valley. So off we go, and we cross this cross this bowl, head for that far pass. Now I'm looking there for the afternoon, and nothing. And then you get to the point, it's okay, I think I've glassed this enough. Let's start making some miles to get to this spot that I've been told, you know, sometimes the rams hang out in. And I bet you I was 200 yards from when we sat up, and off we get going. And I look back and wait for the client, and as I look, I do the typical thing when I'm standing there, I just glass. That's just what I do. And up, and I'm looking at the bowl that I just looked at for 16 hours, and there's a ram just standing, or actually he was bedded chewing his cud. I'm like, oh crap, ram. So I'm like, we jump down, I get the spot and scope on it. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Biggest ram stone sheep I've ever seen in my life. just an absolute cranker. And I'm sitting there just shaking. And this guy's like, "Is it a good one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think this one's legal." You know, just you got to learn not to get them too excited, right?
Right.
And we're pinned down at 600 yards, and it's with another like dink banana horn ram. So it's weird. Like you'd think, you know, maybe it would be, and he was mature, obviously, you know, just tipped up, just massive ram. So we're sitting there for a couple hours, and that's, you know, that's when your heart's just going and the adrenaline's pumping. And then the young little ram just kicks him out of his bed, and they just start going away from us. I'm like, oh crap. They go, I don't know, it's probably like a mile and a half long ridge right up to skyline, and they disappear. And I'm like, look at my watch and enough time in the day. So I'm like, okay, there's 2 ways we can do this right now. We can take our whole camp with us and go, and, you know, if we kill the ram, we've got everything with us, and, you know, we can make camp and take our time. Or we go light and try and burn up there and kill them and just have to hike down and get here, you know, in the early mornings. And it's amazing in that sort of adrenaline situation. It's sometimes hard to make up your mind.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I was like, oh, we should do this. Oh, no, we should do this. And I was back and forth. And I think in the end, I was like, oh, let's just go light. And I literally took 50 yards, and I just had this gut feeling. I was like, nah, take your camp. So I was like, sorry, man, I changed my mind. Let's go get our camp. So I'd already like dumped my camp out. So we went back and grabbed my camp here, wasting all this time. Anyways, off we go, we climb up this ridge, and we're getting closer to that saddle that I've seen the 2 rams disappear over. And I'm like, okay, let's drop our stuff here and let's go up. And I just had this weird, the wind was kind of scree, but the thing I've learned with the mountains is, you know, the wind might be in the back of your neck as you're going up to the saddle, but there's usually always a wind coming the other side. It's like the mountains just have this kind of weird sort of system. So I decided to go low below the saddle and up high to the left, just to try and beat that wind, just in case they were just bedded right in the middle of that saddle. And I come up slowly to the left side. I'm looking, and then that little dink ram standing there looking at us. I'm like, oh crap, we're busted. So I'm like, get down. The ram's it's gonna be there. It was like 100 yards. And nothing. The ram's sort of standing at us, and he just starts walking away and goes back the way he had come in the first place. Nothing. We're sitting there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, nothing. I'm like, what's going on? Maybe that big ram's disappeared. I was like, crap.
Is this rifle or bow?
This is rifle.
Okay.
Unfortunately, as you'll find out. And so I'm like, get up. And so it's kind of like this big saddle of these big boulders. And so it's open. Like you're going to be spotted way before you see the ram. So we're taking kind of side steps, and we're looking everywhere. And I'm kind of looking. I'm more worried about what's on the other side. We're looking, and I'm kind of sidestepping. And all of a sudden, I just see this tip on one side of this rock. I'm like, right there. He's like, what? I'm like, right there. And like 16 yards, there's this ram facing away, just sitting there chewing his cud.
Jeez.
I'm like, are you ready? He's like, yeah. And so I'm like, turn down your scope. That's
turn
a big,
your gun around and hit him over there.
Yeah. That's a big thing to learn, is turn down your scope.
Yeah.
And so I'm like grabbing him by the scruff, and I'm being real rough now. I'm like just sidestepping him. I'm like, shoot him in the back. And now I'm like talking like a normal person. I'm like, just shoot him. You know, I might have said other words. I don't know what I said. And boom, and hits the ram. The ram jumps up. It's just smoke everywhere. I can't see nothing. And then the smoke clears in areas at 40 yards broad. So I'm like, shoot him again. Boom, and drops. I'm like, holy crap. I've got it on my iPhone. It's like unbelievable footage. It's hilarious.
Nice.
And we're just like slapping each other's backs and just screaming like little girls, and walk up to him. And yeah, he was what I thought he was. He was just an absolute giant. But the biggest thing that gives me goosebumps this day is he was 16 and a half years old.
Holy
which
cow.
I don't know what happened this year. I did hear rumors that a 17-year-old ram got killed, but the hunter himself said it was false. The guy aged it wrong. But the head biologist aged that ram, and his words are, it's the oldest stone sheep ever killed on paper.
There it is, Cal. 2017, that's a wrap.
Yeah. Not the most successful hunting season, but it was a good season as far as podcasts go.
Yeah, and man, the places we went, the things we learned, we got a deer too.
Yep. And it's only going to help us get some stuff in 2018.
Yeah, I don't know how many rabbits I brought home too. And
Yeah.
so it was good.
Awesome.
So cheers to to this season, and
Yeah, happy holidays to everybody, and
Yeah.
we'll talk to you in the new year.
you bet. Thanks, guys.